A quick reminder, there's still a couple of days left to support NIghtwatch on Kickstarter. Link in the description. Hello ladies and gentlemen, it is I, Bansert of the Association of Ishtar, here with my co-host Anwin. And today, last time I said we would be talking about the project system, but it turned out that I lied. We're gonna be talking about character creation today, in particular the skill and perk system and how that works. Now again, I wanted to make a very accessible system, but also a system where people can make whatever characters I want. We've got, or chapter 9 is completely dedicated to the system. It goes over like what traits do and what traits we recommend you start with. We do not have a point system. We have something called skill dots, but before that, like what we've done, we've got a list of flaws that you can pick. These are basically bad things for the player, but also kind of like tell a little bit about the player's history and past. Like, for example, a criminal record, crippled or maimed limbs, kind of like serious character flaws that give it certain penalties. And also, of course, I want to have like this kind of like conflict between science and the esoteric and the supernatural. So I also included stuff like superstitious. Now, then we've got backgrounds. Now, backgrounds are kind of like the formative years of a character, which dictates certain starting skills in the form of skill dots, which I'll go over. Again, they all have their like own little theme. The exception is medium, which is kind of like tied into your conjuration system. It's not really magic, and I added it more for role-playing reasons and because it really fits the time. But yeah, then we also have careers. They're very similar to backgrounds, but they kind of like, okay, what type of career does this character have? I mean, they all speak quite for themselves. A lot of them, again, add skill dots. However, for role-playing purposes, this is also a bit more interesting. I see I need to expand that image a little bit more. Again, I also had to remove some backgrounds, but maybe I'll put some more in. Kind of think of it. We'll see. Anyway, then we also have the temperaments. Now, temperaments are kind of... again, they are very personality based. Like single-minded, I might actually replace or remove because it's very specific. Like again, this is still a concept document. But yeah, these are kind of like personality traits that are triggered in particular situations. Again, they speak for themselves. Like I have not really looked at things like balance and that type of thing because this is a role-playing game. It's about a role-play. So but also because some of them work into our project system, like workaholic. You can work more hours a day, which is relevant to our project system. But again, we're gonna talk about that next time. We've got like income and currency. You get to pick how much your character earns every year. We've got some examples. Be free to come up with your own. We also got like conversion rates for people who want to play in different parts of the world. So what to expect. You can start with vehicles if you want. Again, this is more something you negotiate with your puppet master. Now we've got typical starting gear. Now the trunk, that is a bit more interesting to talk about, because the trunk is basically everything you need to perform your craft. Everything, if you've got particular skills, everything you need to perform those skills will be in your trunk. It's kind of like your off-screen inventory, something that you have. We also have the I have that rule, which is a rule that dictates that we cannot think about everything all the time, right? But there are items that your character would have on him in particular situations where the player is allowed to say, hey, I have that. In fact, we had that with a playtest yesterday where we were being ambushed in the jungle and I said, okay, I want to imply the I have that rule, which was a flare gun to send a signal to one of the other players who was in a different location at the time. And of course, that player did not seem to notice that, so yay. But anyway, we are in favor of being flexible with the amount of equipment a character has with him The trunk works with that, which can literally be a travel trunk or a car trunk or anything like that. So yeah, and of course also people are free to come up with their own perks, which I'll cover in a moment. Now this is kind of this is something that a lot of people had, because we have so many options in character creation. I created some starter builds that include both items and perks. Now, yes, these actually include the perks by name. So let's just get into the perks. But yeah, know that there are useful handouts in the book. These also will be included in the player guide, of course. Maybe some more, who knows, I'm not sure yet. And yeah, we also have got something called weird perks, which are really related to the whole lore surrounding the rifts and the weird beasts and all that stuff. And now, people often want, I want that, you know, and it depends if you have mechanical players or actual role players, how you want to deal with that. Some people just want to be able to ride a weird beast to work. It's up to you. I'm not gonna dictate to you at the table how you want your setting to be. So here we go into the skills. Now the skills are basically skill groups, which I forgot the exact number that we have, but we've got, for example, acrobatics and animal handling, and they have a list of perks. What that means is that you get, like, lowest level character has like 10 skill dots that character can divide across these skill groups. So you kind of need to specialize in what you want. Now, these also determine the amount of dice you must trade. We have a difference between trade checks and skill checks. That's a bit abstract. I don't want to get into it. We've got examples in the book. What's important now, that you have, let's say you put 3 skill dots in acrobatics. That means you get to pick 3 perks from this list. Can be an acrobat who's ambidextrous and a lasso artist, or an acrobat who's ambidextrous and a contortionist. Now, some of them have prerequisites. For a contortionist, you need to have at least 4 dots in athletics, so this is like a kind of like, well, not necessarily end game. There's nothing stopping you from saying, okay, I've got only 10 points, but 4 of them are gonna go in acrobatics because I want to be a contortionist. That's up to you. I mean, there are some... acrobatics is a quite interesting one. It's not a very often picked thing, and something that once players go for it, they really go for it, because, you know, it's really a specialization into its own mind. That's kind of like what makes acrobatics different from others. Animal handling is, you know, if you want to be a rider, you can get to equestrian, allows you to ride horses without penalties, because that's basically how we handle things. The lowest, if you are not trained in a skill, the highest die you get to roll is a D4. Even if your agility is D12, I explained this in the first video how the traits work, you only get to roll a D4, because you're just not trained in handling a horse. You just have no clue what the hell you're doing. So, but remember that you also always roll the boon die, as I explained in the first video. So the lowest die you always have is a D6, really. But the chances of rolling a debacle are quite high with a D4. Applied science, which is very types of hands-on science, interacting with machines, doing math. I mean, computer is originally a word for a human being, by the way. Someone who is a calculator. Like, yes, they're basically walking calculators. If you've got the computer perk, you are very good in calculus. Radio operator, radio freaker, which is then kind of like a specialization in that particular field. So the applied science is really the hands-on dealing with making explosives, such. Now, athletics kind of speaks for itself. Let's see, we've got now conjuration is a bit of an interesting one, because again, this is a steampunk setting. This is not a gaslamp fantasy setting. So my definition for steampunk is really cyberpunk in the past. However, you cannot ignore that in the 19th century there was a lot to do about the supernatural. So conjuration had to be in there. People can perform rituals and have them be effects. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about magic in this world when we're going to talk about antagonists, because there is one particular creature that I want to highlight which kind of hints at where we're going to take this. And also, conjuration plays a part in our fortune cards. So do expect a conjuration deck in the future. And yeah, we do have some very interesting things about cults and stuff. I already have a document with drafts for ideas for that. And I showed this to some of my readers, and, you know, they loved it. But they also said it doesn't feel like the Association of Ishtar anymore. And that is why I am kind of like on the fence about the whole conjuration thing. But we're working on a solution. We're working on it. But yeah, that will likely be a thing. Now, I could go on more about this, but that's not what these videos are for. So crafting, if you want to be an engineer, you're going to love the project system that we're going to be talking about next time. So I might talk more about this in the next, but here you can do like make clothes, hourworks, guns, armor, whatever, and we have rules for that. Again, project system. Now, of course, intimidation kind of speaks for itself. In that regard, it might be interesting to emphasize that we have two ways that you can use each particular perk. One way is mechanically, that it does exactly as described in the tin, but some skills are simply more abstract, and these are particularly intended for people who want to roleplay and want to solve puzzles. And what people love doing with the perk system is say, well, a group of people is like blocking our way, and then all of a sudden the guy with intimidation says, well, I've got the evil eye, or I can compel people, or I have my commanding voice, and just these weird situations where it's like, oh, how are the players are gonna handle this now? And then the guy with intimidation says, well, actually. So yeah, that's always a great joy to behold when witnessing the playtests. Yeah, then of course we've got the investigation skill. It works in we also use the project system for this as well. Leadership, I really love the leadership things. We've done so much fun things with this. So if you want to roleplay a general effectively without too much hassle, yeah, leadership, the basic skill of leadership is also allows you to recruit people and to influence a group of people. And it's very close to persuasion, which we also have had so much fun with the leadership perks. Melee, of course, kind of like speaks for itself. Medicine, again, also useful with the project system. Yeah, performance, for again, more for the role players, but you can... Here is the unique rule that the amount of dots you invest in performance actually determines if you are like a local celebrity or global celebrity. So there's like the performance one has a bit of an additional thing. Again, not that many perks, but you know how many things can you add, like, oh, you are good with musical instruments, oh, you are good with singing, oh, you're good with acting. So again, be free to make up your own perks. Piloting, now this is for the people who are interested in the Casket Girl series. Here with the piloting skill tree, you can become an actual Casket Girl. Now, in the lore, piloting the steampunk mechs, or the chassis de bataille, as they're called, is kind of like a gender thing. One of the reasons why I did that, first of all, it's how the whole mech, the history of the mechs, kind of like developed. But it's also like, you know, everything else is almost all male. Like you've got the Knightly Orders, which are primarily males. The Airborne Dragoons are primarily male. So, you know what? We're gonna make the steampunk mech thing a girls' club. They're gonna have their own private companies, which have their own kind of problems. But that's gonna be all worked out in the Casket Girl books. I'm nearly done with book 2. Well, not nearly, but I'm getting there. It's far in development. Yeah, persuasion speaks for itself. Ranged, anything related to ranged weapons. And in the previous video on the checks, I also mentioned Surge can unlock can activate certain perks. Of course, I cannot find that particular perk right now, but the idea is if you roll a Surge and you have particular perks, you can do additional damage, or you get to make a free attack or something. I think Mad Minutes, yeah, that works with bolt action rifles. Yeah, we try to make the weapons kind of like historical, and you know, that every weapon class feels like its own thing. Red Hunter also plays into like how our approach to the target numbers. So, but I'm gonna talk about that when we talk about antagonists. Otherwise, we're going way too far into the weeds. Then we've got research again. Again, this is very relevant again to our role-playing and project system-related shenanigans. But yeah, if you want to be a chemical engineer or a botanist or a roboticist, yeah, this is the place to be, which either helps you design or build. Usually both. There's a lot of crossover between research and design and crafting, which is research and design is more a bit more of the theoretical side of things, and the design side of things, while crafting is the hands-on making of something. So a research designer can like make a blueprint that the crafter can then turn into an actual vehicle. But yeah, we'll go over that in the project system. But yeah, also, of course, security, very useful skills I found, especially if you're more into the role-playing side of things. Survival, I use tracking a lot as we are currently doing a thing inside of Africa. I think we almost have them like subterfuge for the sneaky ones. This is sneaky infiltration, which is kind of like the project version of sneaking. Undercover, again, a lot of fun things. And then we've got the golden porks for like the really high level players, the people who want to play with characters who have over 20 skill dots. But we really recommend this for players who really want to get into the weeds of things. Now, you can also give golden perks to lower level characters. Of course, that's up to the PM. Like, maybe there are, like, characters who, like, really have a lot of experience with the strange and uncanny. But yeah, these are almost very, well, not necessarily superhero-esque abilities, but really overpowered things that really allow players to manipulate the world around them. And then we also have an example of play of like, what is it, 4 pages where we characters going over like how the check system and perks work in practice. I hope you found this useful. I hope this wasn't taking too long. But yeah, there's a lot. I really wanted to go over the character creation real quick. Again, we have a beta for the people who pledged over certain amounts of money. So yeah, make use of that. Tell us what perks you want, what perks are unclear, etc. So please make use of that privilege so we can make the game that you want. And again, the Kickstarter is still running. It runs till July 3rd. Help us reach those stretch goals so we can add more fortune cards, for instance. And yeah, folks, I hope you enjoyed. As always, make things your way. Good night.